Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we talk about healthy relationships from a Muslim lens. I'm Zahra Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and we've been married for 3 years now.
And let's get started.
Let's get started.
On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about how to use the dating apps. So this is a highly requested episode. We've taken our time to sort through how to best present this information, because this is information that I teach to my coaching clients directly over a 3-month period. I also deliver a webinar just for Muslim women where we talk about how to for strategies on how to use the dating apps. So we have tinkered, and In Shaa Allah, I think we got it. Do you think we got it?
Yeah, absolutely. What I find strange about the newest generation is that they're so used to using like apps that they forgot how to use like regular Windows.
Yeah.
And you know how you thought they'd be like better than us eventually at using like Windows Explorer, File Explorer, things like that. Really quickly, they showed us that they don't know the first thing about File Explorer. So it's good that we're teaching them how to use calendar apps as well.
All right, my dear. Okay, so you're saying dating as in dating calendar.
Yeah, dating apps.
All right, so that's not what we're talking about at all.
It's not?
No, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
Oh.
So this is the matrimonial app. You're right. I shouldn't call them dating apps, because the intention for using the apps is to find a spouse. So ideally, they are marketed as matrimonial apps. They're actually matrimonial apps. But because, just to make sure that everybody understands we're on the same page, we're going to use the term dating apps, because that's the common term.
The colloquial.
That's the word. Colloquial term. Colloquial term.
That's a weird word.
Yes. And of course, it goes without saying that just like everything else, just like the internet itself, matrimonial apps or dating apps, they are a tool to be used. And as Muslims, we understand the dangers that can occur by using any of these apps or any of these platforms. And so we conduct ourselves with a certain decorum and have boundaries in place for ourselves and for the people that we meet, to make sure that, we're accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on how we were conducting ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially because if you're going to meet your spouse on one of these platforms, you want as much barakah as possible. So you want to start off in a way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you to the best of your ability. So that is the big disclaimer, right? So having said all that, how do you actually use these the dating apps in such a way that you don't lose your mind?
What you got to do is you just cast as wide of a net as possible, and then immediately reject 90% of it with your filters.
Honestly, I agree somewhat. I think
do the thing that whales do, like the filter feeding.
Filter feeding. I think that so let's. I like we said, I have agonized over how to present the information over a podcast. So let's just get started right now. This next section is going to be a little bit lecture-y, because we're going to be delivering information. So just bear with us, and then inshallah we'll go back a little bit into our laid back selves and talk about our own personal experiences on these apps. So you've downloaded a dating app, you've decided you want a spouse. How do you use it correctly? Regardless of which app that you use, and we're not going to name any specific one, in general, the goal is to be able to read the individuals that you come across and decide at least 2 things, right? You want to decide, number 1, is this an individual who is interested in commitment, who's serious and looking for commitment, has the same intention that you do? And number 2, are they a manipulator? Right? So for the podcast purposes, let's just stick to those 2 dimensions for now, because that will be at least an effective enough filter to be able to at least help you start meeting the right people. So are they interested in commitment, and are they a manipulator? Just those 2 dimensions. Now, regardless of which dating app that you use, they give you 2 main tools to be able to come to those 2 conclusions. Number 1 are the bios, or the profiles, the things that people have written about themselves. And number 2 are your interactions in the inbox. So that initial meeting and conversation in the inbox before you move off the app. Those are the 2 major tools. So yes. And let's talk about how to read and understand people using each one, right?
Okay.
So when it comes to the bios, now so for you, AJ, if you can think back to your experience when you were using the dating apps, when it comes to a bio, how can you assess whether or not the individual who's written the bio is interested in commitment or not? First of all, do you think is possible just by reading the bio to be able to figure that out?
If the person's interested in commitment?
Yeah, if they're serious about commitment, or if they're not serious about commitment.
By reading the bio, you can get a sense of it, but you can't figure it out completely.
I agree. Because because of the mountains of the sheer number of people that I've gone through, I've gotten to a point, alhamdulillah, that I can just read a bio and know at the time of writing that bio, because sometimes people have their bio for a long time, at the time of writing their bio with a pretty certain accuracy whether or not somebody is serious about commitment. Right? So it is possible to know that just from their bio. How would you assess that? Like, do you remember how you would try to assess that whenever you were going through the women's profiles?
Well, I assumed that they're all committed because they're on Muzmatch.
Okay, that's the same mistake. Like, that's the same idea that I had when I first downloading the dating apps, and I found it took me a while to figure out that that's not the case. Honestly, I would say from maybe every 50 people that you come across on the apps, at least from the women's side, we'll say maybe 4 or 5 of them are serious about commitment.
I think that it's like the woman would be more serious about commitment, right? So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right. So from your side, definitely the statistics are going to be different from your side. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, but let's just say it's not 100%. Let's say it's at least 50%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from the 50%, you're looking at a bio. What are some indicators that this is somebody who is serious about commitment?
Honestly, if in their bio,
Mm-hmm.
they're not asking shallow questions, or they're not like making shallow points,
Mm-hmm.
but rather they're giving like deep philosophical, like what they expect from the future, what they want their life to be. Things like that, like I plan on living the rest of my life here,
Mm-hmm.
unless my husband wants to move or something like that,
I see. So just her logistics. She's talking about what she's looking for or able to offer.
Things like that, probably, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you. But just in general, at a glance, what I've noticed is that people who are serious about commitment spend time and effort on their bio. Right? It's something that's well thought out. They'll sit, especially before the days of ChatGPT, they would sit down and they would agonize over the paragraphs. They would check the grammar to the best of their ability, because not everybody has the same English ability, but to the best, because English is not everyone's first language. A lot of people speak second, third languages, but they would agonize over the grammar, make sure their point is coming across. So the bio will be generally well thought out. It won't be blank. There'll be multiple paragraphs. It won't be bullet points. It usually won't include somebody's Instagram or WhatsApp right there. It will be multiple paragraphs in which they talk about mostly what they have to offer in a
Yeah,
with a positive overall vibe. So as you're reading it, it's as if they wrote it while they were smiling.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the impression that you'll get. So whenever you come across a bio like that, that's a pretty good indicator that this is someone who is serious about commitment. All of the bios that are not that, right? So rather than going through all the different types of intentions that people have other than commitment that come onto the apps, let's just say that all the bios that are not that are likely someone who's not, for one reason or another, is not serious about commitment.
Actually, you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be different for the men
Mm-hmm.
and the women. So like I think we both have different things to talk about, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the actual content and what they lead with.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that I know that when I sat down and created my first profile, it's something I wrote with my sister. My mom took a look at it. It was a whole family affair. And then after on subsequent edits, it's still something that I spend a lot of time crafting. And after spending years coaching men and women, and whenever they would be ready to go and meet somebody, of course they would download a dating app, and then I would get to see from the inside how much effort that they would put into their bios, both Muslim and non-Muslim, both men and women. They would ask their friends, they would ask other members of the community, they would come to me. It's in the same way that when you are applying for a position that is just looking for a job, just a 9 to 5 to pay immediate bills, versus you're creating a resume for a career changing position, a career determining position, right? So when you are making that resume for this dream job that's really going to shift your life and your family's life, this resume is going to be something that, or your CV is going to be something you're going to sit down with and talk to people about, and maybe talk to an expert about, and you'll go over it. Like, do you see what I'm saying? It won't be ChatGPT. So there will be effort there. So in that way, you can really use the bio, right? By taking a look at somebody's bio, you can have a really good indication of whether or not this person is serious about commitment. If we stay on the bio a little bit longer, how can you also tell whether or not somebody is, to some degree, I don't want to say they're a manipulator, but they have intentions to manipulate. Like, I don't know how a diplomatic way of saying it, but somebody who's somewhat personality disordered, looking to control, man or woman, who is not really capable of a healthy relationship. What are some indicators that might be the case from their bio? Like, have you ever come across that from the women's side?
What, like red flags?
Yeah, red flags about personality disorders.
I don't know if they would be open to like providing that information, but usually that comes out while you're talking to them, the chat. But
Yeah.
on the bio, you can sort of get a glimpse of if somebody has some personality red flags, like if they're overly enthusiastic about being a strong, independent woman. It's kind of a red flag for guys,
Okay.
because they don't want somebody that will get angry at them for opening the door for them, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, as a man, you're looking for a partner who will give you space to be yourself. Like, and part of being yourself is being that protector, provider, and to be able to do things for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying 100%. And I can understand how that would be a concern. That makes a lot of sense. Similarly, on the woman's side, a primary concern is somebody who has a tendency, who's looking for somebody to control. right? Actually, this is also true from on the men's side, both men and women. There are sometimes people who are out there who really want to be the one controlling the situation, right? So
Yeah.
being the who wants to be the one in charge to an unhealthy degree that doesn't really give you space to be yourself within the marriage, within the relationship. There are definitely indicators that you can see early in the bio, right? Just by reading the bio, if you know what you're looking for, there are indicators. This is something I go through in a little bit more detail in the webinar that I've created for Muslim women, and definitely in my coaching. But here for the podcast reasons, let's just say in general, somebody who their vibe when you're reading their bio is putting themselves above you, right? So that they're telling you, I am an individual who decides whether or not you are in some way worthy. So they'll say something like, I'm looking for sorry, let me just think of a quick example. They might say something like, feminists need not apply, right? Or feminists swipe left.
That's true. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll give you some sort of benchmark, which in some intuitive way there is telling you, you need to be at least this good, this worthy to be able to deal with me. And the term that they use for that worthiness will change according to the times. So these days we have something like, I'm looking for a feminine woman, submissive woman. I'm looking for somebody who, sometimes they'll even say traditional, right? Traditional is usually not a red flag by itself, but in the overall context of that bio, if the whole bio is really giving this vibe of, you need to make sure that you're worthy enough to even be able to swipe right on my profile, then even the word traditional can be in that context. And similarly for women, right? Sometimes they'll write on their bio something like, usually dealing with finances. You need to have a certain level of finances to be able to deal with me. You need to be a high value man, which doesn't make any kind of sense, to be able to deal with me. Honestly, even sometimes height.
Ah, right? Yes.
Yeah, sometimes height, and I will never understand that.
If a person needs to be a high value man, they have to be this tall, that tall?
Yes, absolutely. So it's the idea is, and it's easier. This is why in my webinar I keep it to small groups and we have a lot of examples, because some of these are abstract concepts that are hard to articulate in words, but as you can hear me struggling, and it's a lot easier to see. So I include examples and I show bios with examples so that you're able to understand what I'm trying to get across. But the whole general feel is that they're going to be creating benchmarks and thresholds and telling you that you need to be at least this in order to deal with me. That's the vibe that you're looking for in a bio. If you see that them setting those thresholds, that can usually be a bit of a red flag, because somebody who doesn't think that way is not really focused on reasons why people shouldn't be with them, right? They're instead focused on, these are the reasons you should be, that I'm great, right? Instead of them being focused on, these are all the ways that you are not worthy of me, they're focused on, these are all the reasons why I'm a great person to be with. They're just talking about themselves. They're not really talking about their potential spouse. Does that make sense? Yeah, they'll say things like, you know what, I'm really easygoing. My friends say that I'm funny. That I've accomplished this in school. I've accomplished this in my job. I really love my family. They talk about themselves. Whereas the people who are a little bit more red flagged are going to say, I'm looking for someone who's easygoing.
Yeah, actually, makes sense.
And things like that.
A good example of a profile is someone who says, I'm looking for someone serious.
Yes.
A weird
Yeah.
example of a profile is someone who says, "I'm looking for someone with a curvy body."
All right. I've actually, yeah, that's actually sadly very common. But yes. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, please let us know in the comments. Or if it does make sense, please let us know in the comments, inshallah. If you have any questions about that, always feel free to reach out, and inshallah I'll clarify for you. But that's the section about the bio. Now, when it comes to the initial interactions on the inbox, where you're still on the app, you know.
Honestly, though, before
Yeah.
we get off the bio,
Yeah.
what you guys want to do is focus on your bio. Just write some good sentences, maybe a paragraph. You don't want to make your bio something that can be gone through with one glance, and it's generic enough to apply to almost everyone that the person's going to see, right? You want the bio to actually include your past and your aspirations and what makes you unique, because the bio is what's going to be talking for you before anyone else does.
100%, absolutely. So we're focused on reading other people's bios in order to filter them out. But yeah, it's 100% true that other people are going to be doing the same to you, right? And you want to write your bio in such a way that the right people are going to be able to recognize you rather than filter you out. So I agree with you. So write it in the same, like, write it as a green flagged person. So
An example of a generic bio, real quick,
yeah.
is somebody who likes to read books, they like to go on hikes, and they like cooking.
Okay, you just called me out for my first bio.
That's a generic bio.
Yeah.
Example of a good bio is mine. So congratulations, you won.
Actually, I agree. Like when I'm coaching clients, if they say something like I like reading books, I always tell them write a specific book, right? Write a little bit of a specific book. Like my favorite book is The Life of Pi by Jan Martel, right? And then that gives a little bit of insight to who you are as an individual rather than sounding generic, just like you said. But yeah, writing a bio is something that it takes a whole hour for me to go through with clients. So we're not going to spend too much time here, but in general, write it as a green flagged person, which means write about yourself and what you offer and what you like about yourself, your favorite things. And don't write it to the world, just write it to your spouse, specifically to your spouse, as if you're talking directly to him or her, and just focus on it's like as if you're introducing yourself to them. That's the vibe that you want to reach, and try to make it so that when they're reading it, it'll feel as if you wrote it while you were smiling, so that's a positive vibe, right? So if you want to smile while writing, sometimes it can help. I know it sounds corny, but that's what you're trying to put out there, right? And it really does make a difference, because I know when I read your bio, right, when you said salam alaikum to me in the inbox and I went back immediately and checked your bio, that's exactly the impression that I got, that you were a positive, happy person who was serious about looking for commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think the fact that you matched with me is a red flag.
Okay. I mean, why would that be?
Why would somebody want to match with little old me?
Oh, Jazaa K'Allah. That's for a multitude of reasons that we're finding more of each day. That's why. Okay, so that's the bio, right? And then if we move on a little bit to the inbox interactions. In general, the inbox interactions are invaluable if you have an understanding of what it is that you're looking at and the dynamics of how a committed person versus an uncommitted person moves, and the dynamics of how people who have a little bit of a manipulator tendency versus those who don't, then it will save you a lot of time. simply just by those first 1 or 2 days of looking at it in an analytical sense. So what I mean by all that, when somebody is committed, right, and they are serious and looking for marriage seriously, in general, they're going to move in a consistent way. When I say consistent, I mean regardless of who it is, they all tend to do the same thing. When it comes to men, they will be very clear about their intentions, right? They'll let you know by being very consistent with their communication. They're going to be focused on trying to impress you as a woman. And we've spoken about this before. They're going to try to impress you by making jokes. Whether or not the jokes are funny is something else, but they will try to make a joke. They're going to talk a lot about their accomplishments, and they're going to let you know that they read your bio. These are some really strong indicators that this is someone who is serious about getting to know you specifically. And in the coming days, they will show up in a relatively consistent manner. Right? And they will also be, of course, respectful of how they talk to you, and they will be respectful of your time. Now, when it comes to women, simply because the social rules are different for how men do courtship versus women do courtship, when a woman is serious about you, she will reciprocate consistently. So that if you reach out to her in a certain manner, on a certain schedule, let's say you reach out to her mornings and nighttime, she will respond relatively quickly. If you are, and whatever energy that you're trying to put out, she will try to match your energy. If you're trying to joke, she'll laugh at your jokes, even if they're not funny. She will laugh at your jokes, and she will try to joke back. Right? Hopefully all of that makes sense. Yeah, like she will be. Yeah, she will be an active participant in this courtship process. Just as you are asking her questions and wanting to know about who she is as a person, she's going to want to ask you similar questions and the same questions, right? Because she is also vetting you, just like you are vetting her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is what it looks like when somebody who is committed, when I say commitment, is looking for commitment, serious commitment, looking for a husband or a wife. That's how they're going to be interacting. Now, when someone is not looking for commitment in general, have you come across people like that? From your bio, it sounds like you've come across people like that. Do you remember what those interactions would?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, okay, so I don't think I've come across people that are not looking for commitment. Mm-hmm. I think I come across people who match and then don't say anything. So the vibe that I get is that they're just swiping on everyone, and then after someone matches back, they're like, okay, now let me take a look at the person.
Yeah, those people aren't looking for commitment. Because that's in general, because there are so many reasons why people are on the apps and but are not looking for a spouse.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the most common reasons is that they're looking for companionship without commitment. For whatever reason, this is somebody who is needing external validation, external reassurance, a place to vent, just companionship. Because companionship has real value, right, as to a human being. But they're, for whatever reason, are not in a place in their life where they're ready for the responsibility and the accountability that comes with the commitment. So they're looking to extract the companionship from you, but try to also minimize your expectations of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that you can do to expedite the matching phase is by taking a good, proper picture of your face.
Yeah.
And not blurring the picture until somebody matches with you. Because what you need to do, both men and women, is make your appearance the first filter, right? Yeah. You'll have people that match with your personality, but they're not going to like the way that you look, whether it's race or weight or just other features. Yeah. You just gotta tear off the bandage and get those people out of the way immediately before you spend like a week and a half talking to them.
No, I agree to some extent, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the men who are looking for a spouse, he would ask them, did you look at her? Go and look at her, right? So it's important that you see this person, because physical attraction, we said, is such a huge part of marriage. You need to be physically attracted to your spouse in order for it to work. We did a whole episode about that.
Yeah.
But because the dating apps or the matrimonial apps are not really 100% halal environment, right? They're not fully controlled, and people are there for so many intentions other than marriage many times, that I understand why many times both men and women, but definitely women, don't feel comfortable don't feel comfortable showing their pictures, and I respect that.
Right? I think as long as the image that you're putting out front is something that people in public would normally see, then it's something that you should just put out there, right? Even if you don't feel comfortable, even if somebody with bad intentions is going to see your face, right?
Yeah.
If that's something that's halal for them to see already, it's at the very least, it's going to remove the people that are not interested in your appearance. And then you're the one that weeds out the people that are not interested in other things, like the marriage, commitment, things like that, personality. But it just makes the job easier for you, because now you're just dealing with a smaller group.
Yeah, I again, it's something that I completely understand, but there's a difference between because it's a form of social media at the end of the day, right? There are many women who don't feel comfortable putting their pictures up on social media, and the reason why it's different from being outside in public is that people tend to not be actively taking pictures of you in public, right? It's just what they see you and then move on. There isn't something that they can hold on to, right? And then they just have in their
you think people are possession. Just collecting pictures of others?
There's all kinds of intentions. I'm not saying that that's the case for 100% of the people. I'm saying that even if a few people have those intentions, then I understand why many women are hesitant to put their pictures up, and they blur their pictures. And whenever I come across a client who says that's what she does, I fully respect it and I understand it. So this is, again, when it comes to establishing boundaries for how it is that you want to move in this environment, which is the internet, and which is not 100% halal. So you have to use your judgment, your personal judgment, to decide what is in line with your values and what's not in line with your values. This is just one of those boundaries that you have to decide for yourself. With full disclosure, in the beginning, I was one of the people who blurred my photo for exactly that reason, right? And then just because it was taking so much time, like it's exactly as you said, it would take so much time that you would meet somebody and then you talk to them for everything else checked out. They seem like a green flag. The interactions were on point. And then they would say, unblur the picture. I would unblur the picture and then they would unmatch.
Yeah.
Which my ego takes a hit. But, this happens to everyone just because not everyone is for everyone. That's just how humanity works.
Some people care too much about the color of skin, someone's race.
Well, it's sometimes there is no explanation, right? Like beauty really is in the eye of the beholder, and every individual just has their idea of who they find attractive and who they don't. Like there's many brothers who when I was back and I was on the apps, just were not for me, right?
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that it makes them any less. They just weren't for me. And there's many brothers who I just was not for. Right? So not everyone is for everyone. That's fine. But everyone is for someone. Your job is to filter through the people who the two of you are not a match for each other, and then to eventually get to the people who the two of you are potential matches for each other. And by unblurring my picture, that process just was a lot faster, right? It was a lot faster. So I agree with the pragmatic aspect of doing it that way. But for the people who don't, like, the reason why I don't want to give advice one way or another is because I'm not a scholar. I'm not an alim, and I can't, like, I can't give a fatwa and say do it this way or don't do it this way. What I do is whatever approach a person has decided upon for themselves based on their understanding of their religion, I work with them with the approach that they have chosen. Right? And so that's with regard to the pictures. So when we come back to the inbox interactions, and you're now trying to decide, somebody said, hey, salaam alaikum, how are you, etc., and they have started that greeting, and you are now trying to decide whether this person is commitment oriented or not commitment oriented. We spoke about how the commitment oriented people move. Let's talk a little bit about how the people who are not looking for commitment, how they move.
So usually their pictures, they have like a fitted cap on.
Specifically? A fitted cap?
Yeah.
How come?
B-boys, is that what they call them?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, type of boys that try to act like models and pretty, just pick up artists.
I see what you're saying.
People. They're too into the lifestyle.
You would be surprised about the number of brothers who were wearing a full Islamic outfits, and who were absolutely not looking for commitment. So yes, the appearances can help, but honestly, there was no consistency. There wasn't enough consistency in that, because if I did notice a pattern, I would just come out and I would tell the people.
I mean, it makes sense in a way, because lions, tigers, leopards, cheetahs, they're all blend into the grassland.
That's absolutely, I agree with 100% agree with you. So the people who are not looking for commitment are going to come. There is no uniform that they wear, not physically, but there is a uniform in their behavior, right? There is a specific pattern in how they will interact with you that makes it pretty, after a while, it makes it pretty easy to spot right away, right?
Yeah.
Generally,
they wash their hands like a fly would.
They would?
They wash their hands like a fly would.
Okay. How come?
They just do that thing where they rub their hands together, they're swaying left and right. They're doing a little bit of a grin, and then they rub it against their face. Oh,
I see what you're saying. That sneaky sly rubbing your hands in anticipation.
Yeah.
I get you. So that's a very, I like that. It's a good image. But what they do, what it will feel like whenever you're interacting with these individuals, it will be very hot and cold, right? Usually from the beginning.
Yeah.
So because their intention is just to extract from you companionship, validation, reassurance, have a place to vent, that feeling of needing that is going to hit at random times, right? It's not something that it's a consistently, I consistently want validation all the time, right? People who consistently want validation and reassurance all the time tend to be more personality disordered, and we'll talk a little bit about how they move. It's different. But for the people, we'll say, who are baseline, regular people who just need external validation, that feeling of wanting that is going to be random. And because that feeling wanting it is random, their interactions with you will be random, right? Yeah. So it will be very hit and miss in terms of when it is that you can get their attention. But when you do have their attention, the part that confuses people is that when you do have their attention and you do have a conversation with them, it tends to go very well. There's a lot of connection. There's a lot of things, compatibility in terms of your values are lighting up. Everything seems to be going great, amazing. You're like, you know what? I think this is the right person. I think I found the one. And then they disappear for 3 days. And then 3 days later, they say Assalamu alaikum. And then you have another conversation and you're like, you know what? I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was being too needy. The second conversation also went really well. I think this is the right person. And then they disappear for a week. And then you're like, all right. So you're like, I don't know what that was. And then they reach out again. And then you have another great conversation. Do you see what it is? So that when you do finally interact with them, it's like you're interacting with somebody you're really good friends with and that you have a good connection with and all of these things. But they keep disappearing, right? So that, so that tends to be the pattern. So if you, and the way that you can reliably recognize this is what's happening is that you will be confused about this person's intentions, right? Because during the times when you're speaking to them, they will talk about wanting commitment. They'll be like, yeah, no, I do want to get married. I see myself wanting that in the future. They may even make plans. They might want to make plans to talk to you more, to get to know, they want to know about your family, all these things, but they don't really follow through, right? And we'll call it a relationship, but the relationship with them at this point, or the talking stage with them at this point, will never really progress beyond what it is. Because they don't want it to progress beyond what it is. They don't need it to. What you're providing now is all that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is how those relationships will go. Just on and off. When it's on, it's great. When it's off, it's really confusing. Right? And those are the people, both men and women, who are looking for companionship without commitment. And I would say that is the majority of the people on the dating apps. The majority of the people on the dating apps are not looking for marriage. They're looking for companionship.
Which is weird because, like, what's the point?
They just really like having that validation. Consciously or subconsciously.
Which is weird because, like, what's the point?
Well, for many of us, we're able to do, alhamdulillah, find other ways to have that validation, or, which is actually more common, we are uncomfortable of using people in this way. Right? So we're uncomfortable with using another individual just for their companionship without intending commitment. This can be Now, these individuals who are looking just for the companionship without commitment, they could be doing this subconsciously. They might not be aware of what they're doing, but the patterns always hold up.
This is what I think they do, right?
Yeah.
They painstakingly tailor, create, fashion a clothes line, right? A whole set of clothing. And they get a shopkeeper to agree to display the clothing. And they proudly put the clothing on display. And then someone's like, I like this. I'm going to go in to buy it. They're like, sorry, this is not for sale.
Yes, exactly. Which is why it's so frustratingly confusing. And anybody who has spent any time on any of the matrimonial apps has come across individuals like this, because this is the most common prototype of person who's on the matrimonial apps, where you're saying, why would you spend all this time with me? Why would you, tell me all of these things and foster this connection and make these plans just to go nowhere? It's frustrating. But
that's why, guys, I told you, like episode number 2 or 3, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Solution: you just gotta kidnap her. Just take in the middle of the night.
Oh, I'm just having flashes of us being in court.
She'll never see it coming.
Just being in court, somebody's playing this episode of the podcast and saying, did you or did you not tell the so-and-so that they should do this?
Well, look, okay, I understand you don't agree with me right now.
Yeah.
But just give it a couple months for Stockholm to kick in. You're going to get it. You're going to get there.
All right. Okay. So let's just move on before we really are in court one day. So
are we going to have to put up a disclaimer?
Yeah, we're going to, please don't do that. Right, please don't kidnap anyone. There's too many people out there.
Don't kidnap anyone else. Just, you can keep the ones that you kidnapped already. It's already done.
Okay, subhanallah. All right, so that's how you can recognize people who are not looking for commitment through the inbox interactions. Now, how do you recognize the people who are, we'll say manipulators, but to some degree personality disorder? The individuals who are looking for someone to control.
How do you deal with them?
Now, how do you recognize them from
Oh,
their
how do you
interactions with
recognize
you?
them?
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, that's tough. Someone that's like a manipulator,
Hmm.
you just gotta be aware of the signs. Like are they trying to manipulate you?
Subtly, but we did a whole episode where we talked about the red flags, right? How to recognize red flags, and we went through many of them there. But again, if we just talk about how those relationships will go, just so that if you're in one or you've
Yeah.
been through one, you'll be able to recognize it and label it and say, oh, that's what's happening there. When we talk about how a green flagged or a person serious looking for commitment and who is healthy enough to build a healthy relationship, they'll be very consistent in their approach. They'll be respectful. We talked about all that. A person who is a manipulator will not only be consistent, they will be too consistent in their
That
initial
actually
approach.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, they will be too consistent. It will feel almost invasive.
Yeah.
Invasive. We talked before about love bombing, but this is part of love bombing where they and I go through this in my webinar specifically, what that interaction will feel like and what are some of the techniques that they do, but it will feel invasive. It's the same feeling as if somebody comes and knocks on your door as a stranger and you open the door, and rather than having a conversation on the front porch of them explaining who they are and why they're there, they just walk right past you into your house and they want to sit down on your couch, and that's where they want to have the conversation. Like that feeling of being invaded upon. That's how it will typically feel with somebody who is a manipulator. You will feel intensely seen. They will ask you so many questions about you and your life, and they will empathize with anything that you say. They'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry you went through that. That must have been so hard, so difficult. But if you know what you're looking at, there will also be like a subtle underlying sense of them being demanding, a little bit of demanding of your time, of your validation, of your reassurance, of all the things that you can offer.
Have you guys ever had a little too much of a mouthful of honey? It's that type of feeling, like intense.
Intense is a very good word, right? And if we were to summarize all of it, and you were just to look for two very specific signs that this is someone you're dealing with, two reliable signs, and I always say this, is that number one, they will be unable to respect your boundaries. Any boundaries that you put up, they do not have the ability to respect them, so they won't. And number two, they can't take accountability. They can't. It's too painful for them. So anytime they do anything wrong, even if you have them on tape and you have 15 witnesses, they won't be able to take accountability. They'll say, it wasn't me, and if it was me, I was right to do it. Right? Like
the narcissist playbook.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all of that to some degree. Those are the two signs that you should keep in the back of your head when you are dealing with anyone, and when you see both of them, one or both of them, understand that this is someone who probably doesn't have your best interest at heart. So hope this is again one of those things that's hard to articulate into words, but the initial inbox interactions, if you are feeling that the consistency is a little bit too much, that this person wants a little bit too much of your time, that they really are having a hard time respecting your boundaries, and that they are asking a lot pretty invasive questions of you, if they are trauma dumping on you, which means that they're telling you too much information about themselves way too early on.
You just got to get out.
Yes, these are some indicators that this is someone who might be personality disordered. Yeah. So those interactions in the inbox and the bio, reading the bio in the ways that we talked about, if you just do those two things and use those two tools to read the intentions of the people that you're coming across, it will significantly help you to cut down or to filter out a large number of the people who are not serious and who might be a little dangerous.
I know of a red flag.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never experienced it, but I just concocted it in my brain.
Yeah.
When you guys are having that first meeting, usually the woman will bring a friend for safety.
Yeah.
A red flag is if you expect the guy to pay for the friend's stuff as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a red flag.
I did not know that. I was not aware.
Well, yeah, the woman should, like, the friend is not supposed to be involved with the meeting.
Yeah.
Right? So if she chooses to get something to eat as well, which she has the right to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he shouldn't pay for her. She should pay for her own thing, or the friend should, like, they should chip in together to pay for the thing.
Honestly, that makes a lot of sense.
Because they're joining for safety, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're gonna have the guy pay for them, get ready, because you're gonna open him up to polygamy. You've already got that started in his brain. He's like, you know what? This makes sense.
Okay, so she should bring a married friend.
Bring a married friend, yeah, sure. But then that
Unavailable.
means that, like, she's still gonna have to pay for her own food.
No, that honestly, I didn't consider that before, but that makes 100% sense. Because usually whenever, like, we can do a whole another episode of meetups, right, or dating or court, like, what are some useful date types to be able to gather the information that you need to assess whether or not this person is right for you, because you can date strategically as well, right?
Yeah.
When I say date, I mean meet, but in a halal setting.
Typically what I do, what I used to do for my dating was like a shotgun approach, you know? I would schedule them all at the same time at the same restaurant, and they'd all be confused. I'd just walk through the doors and be like, I've gathered you all here today to talk about me. Today is me appreciation day. You can begin. And I would just stand there, and usually it wouldn't be compliments. It would be like just insults hurled at me.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did to like deserve the insults.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a fun day out.
Yeah, and whoever doesn't leave, that'll be your wife.
No, that's a red flag right there. The person that stays is the red flag.
Oh, well, I'm all sorts of red flags, alhamdulillah. But yeah, but that makes I like that. But In Shaa Allah, maybe we'll do that in a future episode of how to quote unquote date strategically. But in general, that's how you can use the dating apps in such a way that, inshallah, it's less of a headache, and it'll save you from having to interact from people who are uncommitted and who are somewhat dangerous. Hopefully that made sense. We had 2 questions, but again, because of time, we're just going to go through one question. So this is from the Muslim Marriage subreddit, and this gentleman says, hello everyone, I, 24-year-old male, have been talking with a long distance potential for 10 months now. During this time, I've had troubles communicating with her properly, and I'm not sure if this is my fault or hers. So throughout those 10 months, we only had 2 voice calls and 2 video calls, and that's only when I asked. The rest are only text chats. She doesn't like for me to voice or video call her at all. Although there are times when we are text chatting and suddenly she disappears for no reason, and I have to wait hours or days for her to come back, and in rare instances, I have to wait weeks. Her excuse is that she was sick, busy during that period, but at the same time, I can see her active in social media, such as posting comments comments and videos on Facebook and Instagram, so it doesn't make sense. For example, it's been 5 days since we last talked, but I saw her today using Facebook, which is very weird. Why would she have the time to use social media but doesn't have the time to message me? Whenever she decided to chat with me again, she starts apologizing, but then does the same thing all over again. I am ultra confused, honestly. It's like she controls when she wants to call me. She controls when she wants to chat with me. She controls when she wants to disappear. Everything is in her control, and I got nothing to do with it. I started feeling as if she's pushing me away on purpose, or she's no longer interested in me. But at the same time, she decided to stay with me for 10 months and told me that she loves me and that she wants to marry me and all that romantic talk. So nothing happening is making sense, honestly. What do you think's happening here?
Okay, I thought you said 2 months at first, and then it turns out to have been 10 months.
Yes.
I was like, bro, this guy doesn't get it. But then 10 months, this guy doesn't get it.
Yeah.
It's so... Now, they're not even married. Why is he still talking to her? What's going on there? Like, okay, so sure, she can get busy for like a week. She can get... But to repeatedly get busy, that makes no sense to me. To repeatedly be like gone for weeks, that makes no sense to me. To still be active on Facebook and whatnot, and her excuse is like, sorry, I was busy. If the guy was doing the same thing on the other end, everybody would be like, what's going on here? And I don't think any girl would want to stick around. It's just not a good look for the guy. You know, it's not a good look.
No, it's not.
He needs to move on, and I feel like had he moved on when any other normal person would have, he would have already found a wife by now.
I agree 100%. But what do you think she's doing? Like, what are her intentions here?
He's the backup plan.
Yeah.
He's literally the backup plan. Every time she matches with someone that she likes better, she hangs out with them, does whatever she does with them, talks with them, and if that falls through, she comes back to backup plan.
Yes. I think even more than backup, like it could... You're right. I agree that she's probably talking to multiple people. But even if she wasn't talking to anybody else, and I've seen this happen many times, it would still be the same interaction with him. She's coming to him for validation, reassurance, companionship. That's all that's happening. It's exactly what we were talking about before. When you are dealing with somebody who has no interest and commitment with you, but is interested in your companionship, which is why he's confused, right? He says, I don't know why she would spend 10 months, but then not move at all, like not progress the relationship towards something that's serious, towards real commitment. It's because she's not interested in commitment. She just likes the companionship. And I'm sure that if I were to sit down with him and I would ask him, what are your interactions like when you do get to talk to each other? And he would say, no, then everything's great. You know, we joke.
He's going to say that because this guy has low self-esteem. He's holding on to somebody that he thinks, oh, I'll never get another chance to talk to someone. No one else is going to like me.
I think
the guy has low self-esteem from the sounds of it.
Yeah, definitely. That could be, that's probably the case for most people, but I think he said, I am a 24-year-old male, right? Yeah. And he hasn't, I believe he said at some point that he hasn't been married before and he hasn't really spoken to anyone before. I think this is more an issue of naivety, being naive, right? And many of us, because we, as Muslims, we just go to school, go to work, come home, and we don't really deal with the opposite gender, right? So when it comes time to find a spouse and we download the jungle that is the dating app and we go out into this jungle unprepared, we mistakenly believe that I'm here to find a spouse, therefore everyone else must also be here to find a spouse, right? So they don't, and I know that I was I was guilty of this. It never occurs to many of us that there would be people out here who would talk to me and never have any intention of marrying me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Poor
He's thinking,
guy.
yes, I think he's just young and he's naive and he's not as jaded as many of us have become on the other side of having that interaction over and over again. But that's a big reason why this episode is important, and a big reason why we are making this podcast. If you are starting your journey of looking for a spouse, please understand that there are going to be plenty of people who want your time and your companionship and who will have no intention of committing to you or wanting to marry you. That doesn't make them bad people, but it's you should still be aware that there are a lot of people who are out there that are like that.
It doesn't make them bad people, it just makes them undesirable.
Exactly. All right, and exactly. Your companionship is extremely valuable and wonderful and beautiful, right? And it's just like it's valuable to them, it's important that you value your companionship and your time and everything that is in your heart to give as well. And that that you scrutinize the people who have the benefit of spending time with you. I don't mean be judgmental. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who judges in the end. But to be a little bit wise in trying to understand and read, is this person really who they say they are? And do their intentions match up? Is the way that they're showing up matching up with what they're saying that they want? Right?
Yeah.
Of being able to try to read their intentions. If you are on the dating apps, pay attention to their bios. Their bio will tell you, according to the criteria we went through, whether or not this person is serious about commitment. If you are talking to them through their inbox or chatting or texting them, pay attention again. Their behavior will tell you everything that you need that their words will not. In Shaa Allah, is there anything that we're missing? Did we cover everything we needed to?
No, very extensive, very thorough, very wonderful. Guys, I know I said this earlier. I'm going to take back my word on this. Let the hostages go. Let the kidnapped go. All right, just release them.
And I think that I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah. If there was anything, for those of you who are going through this time in your life when you're trying to search to find a spouse and you're using these platforms, these wonderful, inshallah, I have real hope that that they are being changed and adjusted and will one day be a halal place where we can reliably and easily find a spouse, and I will not have a job because it will be 100% effective. I think that day is coming soon, inshallah. But inshallah. Until then, make sure, hold on to your boundaries, hold on to your values, make sure you conduct yourself in a way where you'll be able to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. And if you're out there and you're going through this experience now, please and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. If you have if you have any opinions about anything that we've said, please feel free to ask in the comments. If you have
one final thing.
Yes, go ahead.
I just got a wonderful business idea. Okay. Fantastic. I'm going to find a way to breed a brand of cow that is able to jump the highest of any other cow out there. And I'm going to call the milk Boundary.
Boundary?
Boundary.
Boundary. Boundary.
They're bounding cows.
Yeah. So AJ and I do this thing where because we really like puns, and I'm so sorry that now this is a part of your life as well. But we do this thing where we'll take a word and then we'll tell a story about a word, just like he just did, and to create a pun from it. I like that one. Boundary.
Boundary.
Yes. Yeah, so if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, for those of you who have, Jazaa K'Allah Khayr, we really appreciate it. And if you haven't already and you find the information is useful, we would love if you could subscribe to the channel as well. if you have any friends who are going through this process and you think this information would be useful, drop a link in the group chat. In Shaa Allah, hopefully this can save somebody months and months with the wrong person. And finally, if you are a young woman and you have already thrown your hands up in the air when it comes to the dating apps and you would like help, I have created a free webinar for Muslim women, actually for anyone, but mostly Muslim women, called Dating App Strategies That Actually Work. It's the strategy that I use. It's the strategy that I teach my clients. It's a free webinar, 1 hour. Again, I keep those classes very small, only 4 people each at a time, because it's very interactive so that I can ask you questions about the material. I have a lot of examples of bios, examples of conversations that I created so that you'll be able to recognize and apply the things that we talk about there. If you are interested, there is a link in the description, in the about section on our YouTube channel, or you can also find a link on my Instagram page at Zahra Hassan Coaching, all one word. That is also in the about section in the YouTube channel. So Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time with us, and we wish you a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.